The mute icon glowed red on Graham's phone. His mother leaned over our kitchen island and repeated my father's careful Indian vowels in a thick, sing-song voice. "We will be there at 6:30, Graham. We are very honored." Evelyn laughed into her wine. "If Aaron gives that welcome, half the donors will think we hired a cab driver to introduce the orchestra." Graham's mouth tightened around a smile. He looked at me, saw the 3 conservatory keys clenched in my hand, and smiled anyway. "And Priya's wearing Claire's green dress," he said. "She should at least take out the alterations tag before she pretends it's hers." A woman's voice burst from the phone. "Graham, you're still connected." Evelyn froze. Graham lunged for the screen, knocking his wineglass against the marble. The call vanished. For 1 second, the kitchen was silent, except for the soft click of the brass keys striking one another. Graham stared at his phone. He didn't look sorry. He looked terrified. Not of what he had said, of who might have saved it. "Who was that?" I asked. "I don't know." He swiped through the call screen. "Judith, maybe. The conference app's been acting weird." Evelyn put down her glass with exaggerated care. Well, why was Judith still there? The question was for Graham, as though Judith had trespassed into a private room and found them behaving perfectly. "I thought she dropped after we confirmed the donor table," he said. "You thought my parents dropped too," I said. He looked up at me. "They did." I set the keys on the island, loading entrance, foyer, service corridor. Evelyn had tied them together with a blue grosgrain ribbon after my first gala, and 6 years of my fingers had worn the edges pale and furry. "You laughed at his accent." "Claire, you laughed." "I didn't say it." "That's your defense?" Evelyn exhaled through her nose. It was a pressure release moment. "We have 400 people arriving tomorrow. The floral installation is behind schedule, and the quartet has apparently developed dietary requirements." "The quartet's food has nothing to do with my father." "Obviously not. I'm explaining the atmosphere." She had a gift for making cruelty sound like weather. Something had moved through the room. Everyone had gotten damp. Who could be blamed? Graham shoved his phone into his pocket. "Can we take the temperature down?" "You called Dad a cab driver." "My mother said that." "And then you made fun of Mum's dress." "It was a stupid joke." "Why is her dress funny?" He opened his mouth, but Evelyn answered, "It isn't funny, sweetheart. It's inappropriate for the occasion. There's a difference." The word sweetheart landed exactly where she meant it to. Mum had borrowed the dress from me 3 weeks earlier. It was dark green silk with long sleeves and a narrow waist, formal without looking like it was trying to impress a room. She had refused twice before taking it. "People will know it isn't mine," she'd said, smoothing the skirt over our dining table. "People will know you look beautiful," I'd told her. The tailor's tag inside the side seam read, "Claire Mehta," in my mother's block handwriting. She had sewn it there years ago before Graham, when she still altered everything I wore. Evelyn had spotted it during a fitting and called it charming. Now apparently it was evidence. "Inappropriate how?" I asked. Evelyn glanced toward Graham, giving him the opportunity to save her. He took it. "She just means the gala has a certain visual standard." "My mother is a visual problem?" "No." He rubbed his forehead. "You're turning every word into the worst possible version of itself. I looked at the man I had slept beside for 6 years. That morning, he'd left half his bagel on a plate because he knew I would forget breakfast. At lunch, he'd texted me a picture of a crooked exit sign at the conservatory with the caption, 'Your nemesis returns.' He could be gentle in such specific ways. He could make me feel observed down to the smallest inconvenience. He had also laughed before the sentence was finished. Evelyn slipped off the stool. "I'm going to give you 2 a minute." "No," I said. "You don't get to make the mess and leave me alone with him to clean it." Her face changed, though only at the eyes. "I have never asked you to clean up after me." My laugh came out sharper than I expected. The flower contract was under my company's name. So were the rentals, The lighting crew, the caterer's supplemental invoice, and the emergency generator Evelyn had approved at 11:30 the previous night by sending me a thumbs-up emoji. On Monday, my mother had hemmed 2 cocktail dresses for Evelyn's guests without charging her. That afternoon, Dad had closed his shop early to attend a video rehearsal for a welcome Evelyn had personally asked him to give. "I need to know whether my parents heard you," I said. "They had disconnected," Graham said. "You're sure?" I watched their tile disappear. "And Judith?" I said, "I don't know." Evelyn picked up her handbag. "Judith records meetings for minutes. That does not mean she records casual conversation after a meeting has ended." The 3 of us looked at Graham's pocket, a pulse beat in his jaw. That was when I understood that neither of them was worried about my parents hearing. They were worried about evidence. Evelyn reached for the keys. "I'll take these tonight. The decorators need the service corridor at 7. I put my palm over them. Her hand stopped. "I'll open it," I said. "You're supposed to be at the hotel checking linens. I'll do both." "Claire, don't be theatrical. I'm holding keys. You're making me ask for access to my own event." It was the nearest she came to honesty all evening. Graham moved between us, gentle now. "Mom, go home. Claire and I will talk. I am not leaving without knowing tomorrow is covered." "It's covered," he said. He didn't ask me. Evelyn studied my face, then took her coat from the back of the chair. At the door, she turned. "Your parents are lovely people. I hope you understand that." I waited. "And I am sorry you heard an unkind attempt at humor." Not sorry she'd said it. Sorry I'd heard it. She kissed Graham's cheek and left a faint print the color of rosewood near his ear. He locked the door behind her. The kitchen seemed larger without Evelyn in it, although her glass remained on the island. A crescent of lipstick marked the rim. Graham started clearing dishes. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning up." "You know that isn't what I mean." He carried 2 plates to the sink. "We have been running on 4 hours of sleep for a week. My mother says ugly things when she feels cornered. You know that." "And what do you do when you feel cornered?" He turned on the faucet. "Apparently laugh at jokes I don't think are funny. Why didn't you stop her?" "Because stopping her turns one comment into a 40-minute confrontation, and I had a board call in 10 minutes. So you gave her me instead." "What does that mean?" I pulled the blue ribbon through my fingers. It had once matched the conservatory logo, a deep navy printed on every invitation and menu. Now it was closer to gray. "It means your mother gets the easy version of you," I said. "I get the version who explains why she had to hurt me." He turned off the water. For a moment, something like shame moved through his face. Then he said, "Your father shouldn't be giving the welcome tomorrow." The room seemed to tilt by half an inch. "What?" "His speech is 8 minutes. It was 6 at rehearsal. The program allows 4. Then ask him to cut 2 minutes. It isn't only the length." He dried his hands on a dish towel, avoiding my eyes. The towel had tiny lemons on it, a wedding gift from Mum that Evelyn once called cheerfully suburban. "The board wants the opening to feel polished," he said. "Dad ran his own business for 32 years. He knows how to speak into a microphone. That isn't what I'm saying. You keep telling me what you aren't saying." "Fine. His pacing is slow, and some guests may have difficulty understanding him." I stared at him. "That is not an insult," Graham said quickly. "It's an event consideration." "Did you already remove him?" He glanced toward the folder at the far end of the island. That was answer enough. I opened it. On top lay the final program, printed on thick ivory stock. Evelyn Vale, Gala Chair. Graham Vale, Director of Development. Judith Sloan, Board Treasurer. The quartet, the auction, dinner. Where Dad's name had been, the program now listed Graham. "You changed this before the call. The printer needed final copy by 5. Dad left his shop early for that rehearsal. I was going to tell him tonight." "When? Before or after you mocked him?" Graham came around the island. "Please lower your voice. We're alone. The neighbors. We don't share a wall. He stopped. There it was again. The reflex to manage the sound of pain instead of the thing causing it. I picked up my phone. Who are you calling? My parents. Claire, wait. Why? Because tomorrow matters. The words were quiet, almost tender. I lowered the phone. To whom? To all of us, to the conservatory, to my mother, to the board, to your company. My company? His eyes moved to the folder. I pulled out the stack beneath the programs. Vendor sheets, updated timelines, a lighting invoice with a yellow tab, the florist's balance, the caterer's supplemental charge for the donor reception. 3 amounts had been circled in Graham's handwriting. What is this? Temporary cash flow timing. The board hasn't paid these. They will. They were due last Friday. We discussed this. You told me Judith approved reimbursement. She approved it in principle. I added the figures in my head. I didn't need a calculator. I had spent the afternoon moving them between columns, believing the wire would arrive. $47,000? Most of that won't come out at once. It's guaranteed by my company, which is why tomorrow needs to go well. The coldness that moved through me was almost calming. You let me keep placing orders. The vendors know us. They know me, Graham. They extend terms because I have never missed a payment. And you won't miss this one, unless the board delays again. It won't. How do you know? He took too long. I looked down at the program. His name sat where my father's had been, centered and embossed. Your promotion, I said. His shoulders lowered, a small surrender. The board votes next month. And a successful gala helps. Of course it helps. So Dad was useful when Evelyn wanted him in the invitation photos, but now his accent might embarrass the people voting on your job. That's not fair. Is it inaccurate? He pressed both hands to the island. I have spent 9 years at that conservatory. 9. I've taken donor calls on vacations. I've driven Evelyn across the state because she refuses to use the navigation app. I have earned the director position. You already have director in your title, executive director. The distinction came out with such naked hunger that, under other circumstances, I might have felt sorry for him. Instead, I saw the whole evening rearrange itself. Dad's invitation, the rehearsal, the sudden program change, Evelyn's anxiety about visual standards, my company's money sitting between them and disaster. Graham reached for me. I stepped back. Don't call your parents tonight, he said. My phone felt heavy in my hand. They deserve to know Dad isn't speaking. Yes, but let me handle it in the morning when everyone's calmer. You had all day to handle it. I'm asking you as your husband. The phrase caught me harder than I wanted it to. He saw that. His voice softened. Come upstairs. Sleep for a few hours. Tomorrow we get through the gala, then I'll apologize to Aaron and Priya properly. We'll sit down, all 5 of us if we have to, and deal with this. All 5? My mother needs to own her part, a portion measured and assigned, leaving his small enough to carry. I looked at the brass keys. After my first gala, Evelyn had closed my fingers around them in the empty foyer. The glass ceiling above us had been black with rain. She told me the conservatory had never looked more beautiful. You belong here now, she'd said. I had gone home and tied an extra knot in the ribbon so I would never lose them. I'm going to the hotel, I said. Now? I need to check the linens. Claire. You said tomorrow matters. I slipped the keys into my coat pocket. Graham watched them disappear. At the hotel, 380 napkins waited in gray plastic crates because the rental company had sent pewter instead of ivory. I knew before opening the second crate that the whole shipment was wrong. The ballroom manager, Louise, crouched beside me and held 2 napkins under the service light. They're not that different, he said. They are when one is next to an ivory plate. He squinted. You people have names for too many whites. Despite myself, I laughed. Louise smiled, relieved. There she is. I spent an hour arranging a replacement delivery. The ordinary problem steadied me. Napkins had colors, trucks had arrival times. Wrong things could be identified and exchanged without anyone accusing the fabric of being too sensitive. At 11:47, Mom called. I stared at her name until the final vibration. Then Dad called. I let that one go too. A text appeared. Your mom thinks perhaps the green is too much. Could you call when free? Before I could answer, Graham's name filled the screen. I rejected the call. He tried again, then a message arrived from a number I didn't recognize. Claire, this is Judith Sloan. I was on the line earlier. I believe we should speak before tomorrow evening. 3 dots appeared beneath the message, vanished, then returned. I saved the recording. I read the sentence 3 times. Luis rolled another crate toward the wall. Good news or bad news? I don't know yet. That's usually bad news wearing a tie. I stepped into the service hallway and called Judith. She answered before the first ring finished. Are you alone? Yes. Is Graham with you? No. A cart piled with empty champagne racks rattled past. I pressed closer to the wall. Judith lowered her voice. The committee meeting was recorded through my account. Everyone received the notice when they joined. My parents weren't part of the committee meeting. They joined afterward as guests. Graham merged the calls so your father could rehearse with the audio technician. When Aaron and Priya left, I stayed connected because I was reviewing the donor table with him. And he thought you'd disconnected. Yes. Did my parents hear? I don't believe so. The breath I released hurt. Judith waited before continuing. The recording captured everything after they left, including the conversation you heard. Send it to me. I intend to. First, I need to understand what you plan to do with it. My hand tightened around the phone. Why? Because Evelyn is chair of the Gala. Graham is a senior employee. The board is already dealing with delicate financial questions. If this recording is distributed publicly tonight, tomorrow becomes unmanageable. Delicate financial questions like not paying my company? Silence. Judith. The reimbursement is being processed. That isn't an answer. You're right. Her honesty surprised me enough to keep me from hanging up. I heard paper shifting on her end. The Gala exceeded its approved budget, she said. Evelyn represented several additional expenses as sponsor covered. I learned yesterday that the sponsor's commitment was verbal and conditional. Which sponsor? I can't discuss that yet. My name is on $47,000 in guarantees. I know. No, you knew. That's different. Another silence. Longer this time. I should have called you before now, she said. I looked through the service door at the ballroom. Luis was comparing linen samples with a banquet captain, both men holding white squares as if negotiating a surrender. Why didn't you? Because Evelyn said Graham had discussed the timing with you. He discussed it by leaving overdue invoices under a folder. Judith let out a quiet breath. Then we have more than one problem. We, the board. I'm not on the board. No, she said. You're the person the board has treated like you are, right up until a vote or a payment requires your name. It was the kindest thing anyone connected to the conservatory had said to me in months. That made me distrust it. Send me the recording. I'll send it in the morning after I speak to counsel. I'm not asking your lawyer for permission to hear someone mock my parents. I understand. You keep saying that. I'm trying not to make promises I can't keep. That, at least, did not sound like a veil. I agreed to meet her at the conservatory at 8. She asked me not to alert Evelyn or Graham about the recording until then. I'm not protecting them, I said. I'm asking you to protect your options. When the call ended, I stood in the corridor listening to the hotel ventilation hum. My parents had called twice. I called back. Mom answered on the first ring. There you are. Your father was about to drive to the hotel. I was not, Dad said in the background. I said I could. You put on your shoes. My feet were cold. Their ordinary rhythm nearly undid me. Mom, the dress is perfect. I think the sleeves pull. You had me raise the armholes because you said the sleeves were loose. That was before I ate at your house for 6 years. Dad said, "Your mother is beautiful in the dress. She is fishing." I am not fishing. I am being realistic near silk. I sat on a stack of covered banquet chairs. "There's been a change to tomorrow's program," I said. Dad went quiet. "Graham is giving the welcome instead." "Oh." One small syllable carefully placed. Mum asked, "Is the event running long?" That's what they said. It was not exactly a lie, and it tasted like one. Dad cleared his throat. "Better. I can enjoy my dinner without thinking about 4 minutes all afternoon." "He will practice his greeting in the car anyway," Mum said. "For good pronunciation. You pronounce welcome every day. Not to 400 rich people." I closed my eyes. "I'm sorry." "For what?" Dad asked. "For asking you to prepare. You didn't ask. Evelyn did." That was worse. "I have to tell you something else." A hotel employee opened the service door, saw me, and mouthed sorry before backing out. I forced the words past the pressure in my throat. "After your call tonight, Evelyn made fun of Dad's accent." Graham laughed. "Then he made a comment about your dress." Mum did not speak. Dad asked, "What comment?" "He said you should remove my alterations tag before pretending the dress was yours." The silence changed shape. Mum had stitched thousands of labels into other people's clothes. Her own shop labels were cream with green lettering, ordered in boxes of 500. She had sewn my name into the dress because I used to lose things at professional fittings. It was practical, intimate, and entirely hers. "I see," she said. "Someone else was still on the line," I added. "A board member. She recorded it." "Why was it recorded?" Dad asked. "Committee minutes. Are you going to play it?" "I don't know." Mum's voice sharpened. "Do not play that for us." "I wasn't planning to." "I don't need to hear it in his voice. Yours was enough." Dad said her name softly. "I'm still going tomorrow," he said. "Our run." We accepted. We bought the ticket package. "They were complimentary," Mum said. "I purchased a bow tie." "You owned 3 bow ties." "I purchased the correct one." I could picture him touching the knot to make sure it was straight. "You don't have to come," I said. "We come for you," Dad replied, "not for them." Mum did not agree. She did not refuse either. When I reached home after one, Graham was asleep on the couch with the ivory program spread across the coffee table. He had changed Dad's replacement line again. Graham Vale, opening remarks, had become "welcome from the conservatory," as if removing his own name made the theft less visible. I took a blanket from the chair and almost covered him. Then his phone lit on the cushion. "Mom, she'll settle by morning. Don't chase." I left the blanket folded where it was. At 6, coffee woke me. Graham stood in the bedroom doorway holding my blue mug. "I made it the way you like." The keys were still in my coat pocket downstairs. I touched the empty space on the bedside table where I usually left them. "Thank you." He handed me the mug and sat on the edge of the bed. His hair was damp from the shower. He smelled like cedar soap and coffee, familiar enough to make my body forget the argument before my mind could stop it. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what?" His face tightened. "Do we have to do this as a test?" "I want to know what you're apologizing for." "For laughing, for the dress comment, for changing the program without telling you." "And Dad's accent?" "I didn't mock his accent. You let your mother do it." "I'm sorry I didn't stop her. The apology was complete enough to sound rehearsed and incomplete enough to leave him safe." I drank the coffee. It was exactly right. "Judith contacted me," I said. His gaze flicked to mine. "What did she say?" "That she heard the call." "Did she send you anything?" The question came too quickly. "Why?" "I need to know whether she intends to create a problem." "She didn't create it." "I know that." He stood and paced toward the window. "But recordings can be taken out of context." "What context helps?" My mother thought the call had ended. She was speaking privately in her son's home. About my parents, in front of me. and I apologized. You also said the recording could be taken out of context before you heard it. He turned. Are you meeting Judith? I set the mug down. He read the answer in my face. Claire, she's not neutral. She wants control of the finance committee, and Mom has blocked her twice. Judith is the treasurer. It's political. Everything becomes political when someone might hold your family responsible. Our family. The correction came automatically. I got dressed in the dark green blouse I wore for load-ins, though the sun was already coming through the blinds. Graham followed me downstairs. You cannot pull your company today, he said. I haven't said I'm pulling anything. But you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about why you're more scared of that than of losing me. He flinched, and for one hopeful second, I thought I had reached him. Then he said, because one is happening today. At the conservatory, my loading key turned halfway and stopped. I tried again. The lock had been changed. A facilities employee opened the door from inside. Morning, Claire. What happened to the cylinder? He looked at the keys in my hand. Graham had us switch it last night. We had extra copies floating around. Did he give you a list of authorized people? Evelyn, Graham, me, and Darlene. Darlene was Evelyn's assistant. Not me. He looked embarrassed. He said you'd use the front. The front doors were locked until 10. I stood on the loading dock while the florist's truck waited behind me, and rain began spotting the invoice clipped to my board. After 6 years of opening that door, I had to call Darlene to let my own vendors in. She arrived wearing white pants and an expression of concern. I'm sure it was an oversight, she said. Locks don't overlook people. She made a little sympathetic sound and entered the code with her hand shielding the keypad. Inside, the glass house smelled of wet soil and cut eucalyptus. Ladders stood beneath the palms. The florist had started raising a suspended ring of white branches over the central floor. My crew looked to me for placements. I gave them. That was the trap of being necessary. Even after someone humiliated you, your hands remembered what had to happen next. Judith was waiting in the boardroom with 2 coffees and no recording. Counsel advised me not to distribute the file yet, she said. I remained standing. You told me you would send it, I said after I spoke to counsel. Then why am I here? Because I can authorize the first reimbursement today. First, $22,000. The rest requires the finance committee, which meets when? Monday. The gala is tonight. I'm aware. I laughed once. Apparently everyone is aware except the people waiting to be paid. Judith pushed a document across the table. It was a board authorization for the partial reimbursement, signed electronically. I read every line. What do you want from me? To get tonight open safely. After that, I want a full accounting. Of Evelyn, of the gala. Careful words from a careful woman. My phone buzzed. Mom, I answered. Claire, she said too formally, your father and I will not be coming tonight. I looked at Judith. Why? Graham called. The room seemed to narrow around his name. He explained that you were worried we might feel uncomfortable, Mom continued. He said you were embarrassed the dress had become a subject and thought it would be easier if we stayed home. I never said that. I told your father you would not say it. You were right. Mom's breath caught, small and controlled. In the background, Dad said, ask her why Graham believed it. Mom put me on speaker. A pause. Then Dad's voice came closer. Did you know he was calling us? No. Did you ask him to remove me from the program? No. Are you ashamed of how I speak? The question was so unlike my father that I had to grip the edge of the table. No, I said. Dad, never. Judith looked down at her hands. I have to fix something, I said. Please don't decide about tonight yet. Mom answered quietly. The green dress is in its garment bag. We'll bring it to your house. Don't. It belongs to you. She ended the call. I lowered the phone. Judith reached into her bag and removed a small black drive. I cannot release the committee file without board approval, she said, but the recording began before the committee meeting. The personal portion after your parents left should never have been retained as a board record. She placed the drive between the coffees. I made a copy before counsel decided what it was. I looked at the drive. Is this all of it? It's the complete recording from when I opened the conference room until Graham ended the call. And counsel doesn't know you copied it. Judith folded her hands around her coffee. Counsel knows I preserve records. Counsel does not direct my conscience. It sounded like a sentence she had practiced for some future argument and was relieved to use. I picked up the drive. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to listen. I mean afterward. I don't know. Claire, if you send it to the press or post it somewhere, I don't have a press list, Judith. I have a florist blocking the loading dock because my key stopped working. Her mouth tightened. I'm sorry, that was presumptuous. Everyone keeps apologizing for their tone while doing exactly what they planned. I put the drive in my pocket. It landed beside the brass keys. Judith slid the reimbursement authorization closer. The wire can be released by 10. I'll give you payment instructions. It goes directly to the vendors, not my operating account. That's unusual. So is discovering that my largest client has been using me as a credit line. We were never supposed to be your largest client. No, you were just supposed to be the client that paid the slowest and asked the most favors. She accepted that without defending the board. I took the document and went to the office I used on event days. My name had been removed from the paper sign outside. A new one read Operations in Darlene's polished handwriting. Inside, my laptop connected to the conservatory network and immediately asked me to sign in again. My event credentials had been changed. I used my phone's hotspot. The audio file was almost 2 hours long. I skipped through chair squeaks, paper shuffling, and Graham testing the conference line. Evelyn's voice appeared 11 minutes in. Aaron photographs well with the orchids. We should keep him near the sponsors. Graham answered from farther away. He thinks he's giving the full welcome. Then let him think that until the programs are final. Claire will smooth it out. She's going to be upset. She's always upset for an hour. Then someone needs a charger or a seating chart, and she remembers she likes being useful. Graham laughed softly. I paused the file. Outside the door, a drill whined against metal. Someone called for an 8-foot ladder. The Gala kept assembling itself around me. I pressed play. Graham said, her company can't afford to lose this account right now anyway. She'll get through tonight. Marriage has finally taught her which family sets the table, Evelyn replied. There was a rustle, then Graham's voice, closer to the microphone. Don't say things like that in front of her. It was not defense. It was instruction. I kept listening. They discussed where to place Mum and Dad during cocktail hour. They talked about Dad's accent as if it were a lighting defect, something noticeable that could be softened by distance. Graham suggested replacing his live welcome with a photograph of my parents in the printed donor booklet. Evelyn liked that because it showed the right kind of openness without risking the microphone. Then the committee joined. Judith read financial numbers. Graham said reimbursement was in process. Evelyn assured everyone that a private sponsor had covered the overage. Her voice was smooth. Mine came in later, asking whether the generator had been added to the budget. Yes, sweetheart, recording Evelyn said. All handled. I heard myself say, perfect. I closed the laptop. For several minutes, I sat with my hands flat on the desk. The worst part was not the insult. It was hearing how accurately they had mapped me. They knew which problems would keep me moving. They knew I would postpone my own anger if a driver needed directions or a vendor needed payment. They had mistaken that habit for permission. Darlene tapped on the open door. Evelyn needs the revised seating plan. It's in the shared folder. She says the shared folder won't open. I no longer have access to the network. Darlene blinked. Graham said he adjusted permissions for security. He adjusted me out. I'm sure he can fix it. I'm sure he can. I emailed the plan directly to Darlene, along with a list of everything I would complete under my signed agreement: room layout, vendor arrivals, lighting cues, food service schedule, emergency access. I removed 7 lines that had never belonged to my company: donor transport, Evelyn's personal wardrobe changes, Graham's speech revisions, board gift bags, post-gala floral deliveries, private dinner reservations, and returning borrowed jewelry. Darlene read over my shoulder. "Who's doing all that?" "The people who requested it." "But Evelyn expects—" "I know." That was the first withdrawal, so small Darlene did not understand it until she noticed her own name beside 3 of the tasks. "You can't leave me with donor transport. I don't even have the driver numbers." "They're in Evelyn's phone. She arranged the cars." "She asked you to arrange them." "She asked." I did not agree. Darlene stared at the list as though I had changed the laws of physics. "I'm going to show her this. Please do." By 10:15, the partial reimbursement reached the caterer and florist. I paid the lighting company's minimum due from my business reserve because their crew had already worked 2 days under my contract. It left my account thinner than I could comfortably look at, but it cleared every obligation that was truly mine through the opening of the doors. Anything added afterward would require written board approval. I sent that sentence to Judith, the board president, Graham, and Evelyn. Graham called before the email receipt reached my inbox. "What are you doing?" "Putting changes in writing. You copied Martin. Martin is the board president. He's on a flight. Then he'll read it when he lands. You just told the board Mom exceeded her authority. I told them which expenses my company will and won't accept. You are humiliating her hours before the gala." I looked through the office window. Evelyn stood beneath the suspended white branches, pointing while 3 florists moved in arrangement 6 inches to the left. "She seems all right." "Did Judith give you the recording?" "Yes." His breath stopped. I waited for him to ask whether I was hurt. Instead, he said, "She had no right. It's her recording. It's a confidential board record. You knew she was recording. The app announced it." "I forgot. You also forgot she was on the line." "Claire, please. Come home for 20 minutes. We need to talk without an audience." "There's no one here. You know what I mean." I did. He wanted the room where his coffee mug sat beside mine and the lemon dish towels hung from the oven. He wanted the weight of everything familiar on his side. "I have to change for tonight. I'll meet you there." At home, Mum's clear garment bag hung from the front doorknob. No note. The green silk showed through the plastic, dark as wet leaves. I carried it upstairs and laid it on the bed. Graham arrived while I was unzipping it. He stopped in the doorway. "They brought it back?" "Yes." "I told them you didn't want them uncomfortable. You told them I was embarrassed. I said you were worried the dress had become an issue. You made it an issue. My mother did. And you helped." He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to touch the silk. I was trying to give them an exit. They didn't ask for one. I thought after last night, "You thought if they stayed away, there would be no one in the room to remind me what you did. That's not fair." I almost laughed. Fair had become the little shelter he ran to whenever accuracy got too close. He took my hand. His thumb moved over my knuckles in the same slow rhythm he used when I woke from a bad dream. "I love you," he said. I believed him. That was the terrible part. Graham loved me within the shape of the life he wanted. He loved my coffee order, my cold feet, my habit of singing the wrong line to songs. He loved the version of me who could turn his mother's demands into labeled folders. He just did not believe that version could say no and remain herself. "Then tell the board what happened," I said. His thumb stopped. "Tell them you removed Dad from the program because you were worried about his accent. Tell them you knew my company was carrying unapproved expenses. Tell them you changed the locks." "Today?" "Yes. Hours before the biggest event of the year?" "You keep asking me to delay the truth until it can't inconvenience you. I'm asking for one night. You already took 6 years of one night." He released my hand and stood. "What does that mean?" "It means there was always a reason. Your mother's birthday, the donor lunch, Christmas dinner, her blood pressure, the board vote, the gala. There was always some fragile event I wasn't allowed to disturb with what she'd done. He stared at the garment bag. "Are you leaving me?" I wanted the answer to be simple. It wasn't. I don't know. That frightened him more than yes would have. His face softened. "Give me the conservatory keys." I looked at him. "Why?" "Facilities changed the loading lock. Your set is outdated." "The foyer and service keys still work. Mom needs them tonight. She can request new ones from facilities. Don't do this." "Do what?" "Turn everything into a loyalty test." I reached into my coat and closed my hand around the ribbon. "No." The word sat between us, plain and almost quiet. Graham's expression hardened. "Your business authorization is still active for the event," he said. "You can't selectively refuse expenses after approving the gala." "I approved the contracted budget. You approved necessary extensions." "What extensions?" He looked away. I opened my laptop. 2 emails had been sent that morning from the Gala purchasing portal, which Graham could access under the limited authorization I had given him for last year's event. One promised the caterer I would guarantee the added donor reception. The other extended my company's responsibility for lighting overtime through midnight. Graham stood behind me. "They needed confirmation. You used my authorization. You gave me access. For approved purchases." "These were approved by Mom. Evelyn is not an officer of my company." "You would have said yes." The certainty in his voice finished something the recording had started. I revoked his access, changed the vendor password, and forwarded both emails to Judith with one line. These commitments were not authorized by me. Graham watched me do it. "You're willing to let the gala fail to prove a point." "No, I've spent 6 years making sure it succeeds. I'm just done letting success mean you can use my name without asking." I removed the green dress from its bag. The tag was still inside the seam. Claire Mehta, written by Mum in block letters faded from years of cleaning. Graham's voice dropped. "You're wearing that?" "Yes." "To provoke my mother?" "To wear my dress." He left without saying goodbye. I showered, pinned up my hair, and put on the green silk. The waist was slightly looser where Mum had adjusted it for herself. I left it that way. At 5:30, Judith called. "Martin landed. He will sign an assumption of the remaining approved balances, but he wants to speak with Evelyn first." "When?" "At the gala. Doors open at 6:30. "I know. If the board doesn't assume them in writing, my team stops at the foyer." "You would hold the doors?" "I would decline to unlock them." Another careful silence. "All right," Judith said. "I'll stand with you." When I reached the conservatory, rain glazed the glass roof and turned every light inside into a wavering gold reflection. Darlene intercepted me near the coat room. "Evelyn is furious about the cars." "I'm sorry to hear that." "She had to call them herself. I'm glad she found the numbers." Darlene looked at my dress, then at the keys hanging from the frayed blue ribbon in my hand. "She said you'd bring those." I did. Relief loosened her face. She reached for them. I closed my fingers. "Where's Judith?" Darlene's relief vanished. "In the board office with Martin." "And Graham?" "Waiting for your parents." My heart kicked once. "They're coming!" He said Aaron called from the car. Across the foyer, Graham stood beneath the arch of white branches, watching me. Evelyn appeared beside him in silver silk. Her gaze dropped to my dress, traveled to the blue ribbon in my hand, and stopped there. The first guests were already gathering beneath the awning outside. Behind me, the locked interior foyer doors reflected all 3 of us in the dark glass. The outer doors opened, letting in a gust of damp air and my parents. Dad wore a black tuxedo he had owned for 11 years, and the new bow tie he had insisted was different from his other 3. Mum wore a navy dress with a beaded collar. She carried herself with the careful stiffness of someone entering a room where she already knew she had been discussed. Graham moved toward them. I got there first. "You came." Dad adjusted one cuff. I bought the correct bow tie. Mum looked at the green dress, then touched the sleeve. The waist is loose. I like it. You'll catch it on something. Hello, Priya, Graham said behind me. Mum's hand dropped. He had chosen his public face, warm eyes, low voice, an expression of restrained regret. I had seen him use it with donors who were angry about their names being misspelled. Aaron, I'm glad you reconsidered. Dad looked at him. We did not reconsider. We decided. Of course. I would like to hear from Claire why you thought she was ashamed of us. Graham glanced toward the outer doors. 2 couples were shaking rain from their umbrellas, while Darlene checked names. This isn't the place. It was the place when you needed my photograph. Dad, I said softly. He nodded once and stepped back, but his jaw remained tight. Evelyn crossed the foyer. Aaron, Priya. She offered each name as though it were a gift. Thank you for coming. Tonight should be about the conservatory, so I hope we can put an unfortunate private moment aside. Mum looked at her silver dress. Which private moment? Evelyn's smile held. The one you believed was private, Mum said, or the one where your son called our house and lied about our daughter? The first donors had entered the vestibule. Darlene began greeting them louder. Evelyn moved closer to me. Manage this. This? Your people. Dad's face went still. Graham said, Mom, but he said it gently, a suggestion, not a rebuke. I took one of the brass keys from the ring and fitted it into the inner foyer lock. I did not turn it. My parents are not a vendor problem, I said. Evelyn lowered her voice. Then stop making them one. Judith emerged from the board office with Martin Hale, the board president. Martin was still in his travel suit, a leather folio tucked under his arm. He looked tired and annoyed, which was how powerful men often looked when consequences arrived before dinner. Claire, he said, we need 5 minutes. We have 12 before doors. Privately. This concerns the event team. It concerns reimbursement. Then it also concerns Judith. Martin's gaze moved to my parents, then Graham and Evelyn, then the guests, accumulating behind the velvet rope. Boardroom, he said. No. Evelyn stared at me. Excuse me? If I walk away, the doors stay locked. We can resolve it here. Martin opened his folio. Judith tells me you're refusing to continue unless the board assumes certain expenses. I have completed every item in my signed contract. My staff will perform through the scheduled close. The board must assume the added catering reception, lighting overtime, and other balances Evelyn approved without funding. Those were sponsor covered, Evelyn said. Judith answered. They weren't. The sponsor made a commitment, conditional on an attendance target we did not meet. That target was arbitrary. It was in the proposal. Evelyn turned to Martin. This is what happens when the treasurer wants to produce the gala. Judith did not react. Martin handed me a 2-page document. This assumes the approved balances Judith identified, subject to invoice review. I read the first page, then the second. It says my company remains guarantor until review is complete. That is standard language, and it leaves me exactly where I am. Claire, Graham said. Martin got off a plane and came straight here. Meet him halfway. I looked at him. You used my company authorization this morning to keep vendors from walking. They weren't walking. They were asking who would pay them. Martin's head turned. What authorization? I showed him the emails on my phone. Graham stepped closer. Claire had previously granted me portal access. For last year's approved purchasing, I said. We did not have time to debate every line item. You had time to change a lock. Evelyn made an impatient sound. This is a marital disagreement being dragged into a board event. It became a board problem when your son committed my company to your expenses. He was protecting the gala. I know. That was what each injury had been called. Protection, pressure, timing, humor, anything but choice. Darlene approached us. We have 37 guests in the vestibule. Offer them champagne, Evelyn said. The champagne is inside. Evelyn held out her hand to me. Keys. No. Her voice became very quiet. You will destroy your own reputation. By requiring payment? By throwing a tantrum in a foyer. Mum touched my elbow, but she did not pull me away. Martin rubbed the bridge of his nose. What exactly do you want? A revised assumption with my company released as guarantor for every edition I did not authorize. Judith gets financial control of the event tonight. Evelyn and Graham have no purchasing or operational authority. My team completes its contracted work, then control returns to the conservatory. You can't remove the Gala chair at the door, Evelyn said. I can decline to subsidize her. Graham's face had gone pale. Claire, listen to yourself. You are holding 400 guests outside because my mother made an ugly joke. You still think this is about the joke. What else could it be? My father's speech, the invoices, the locks, my passwords, calling my parents, using my authorization. I apologized for the call. You apologized for how it sounded. How it sounded, Dad said. Graham looked toward him. I was trying to spare you an uncomfortable evening. You said my daughter was embarrassed by me. I said she was worried you would feel embarrassed. No, Mum said. You did not. Graham's control slipped. You're all hearing the most hostile version of everything I say. Judith took out her phone. It may help to hear the version you actually said. His eyes locked on the screen. Don't. Evelyn moved between them. That recording is confidential. Judith stepped to the foyer doors and pressed play. Graham's voice came through the phone, thin but unmistakable. Her company can't afford to lose this account right now anyway. She'll get through tonight. Then Evelyn's. Marriage has finally taught her which family sets the table. The sound carried farther than Judith intended. Conversations in the vestibule thinned. Dad looked at the floor. Mum looked at me. Judith let the recording continue. Evelyn discussed using Dad's photograph without risking the microphone. Graham suggested placing my parents near the orchids because Aaron photographed well there. Then came the mockery I had heard in our kitchen. Evelyn's imitation, the cab driver line, Graham's laugh, the alterations tag. At least take it out before she pretends it's hers. Judith stopped the file. Rain tapped the glass roof. Evelyn reached for the phone. You vicious woman. Judith put it behind her back. Martin's expression had changed. The annoyance was gone. Graham looked at me. You heard all of that already. The sentence hurt more than a denial. Yes. So playing it here served what purpose? I understood then that he would forgive himself for anything I survived quietly. It let everyone stop calling me confused, I said. Evelyn pointed toward the waiting guests. Those people gave thousands of dollars. They are standing in a vestibule listening to a family ambush. Mum stepped forward. My husband and I gave labor. My daughter gave money. You counted on all of it being too ordinary to notice. Evelyn's eyes flicked over her. The alterations were favors between friends. No, Mum said. Friends say thank you. Martin turned to Judith. Can you operate the remaining event budget? Yes. Can the revisions be drafted now? I brought them. She removed a second document from her folder. For the first time that evening, Evelyn seemed unsure of the room. Martin read the document against the wall, made one change, and signed. Judith signed beneath him. He handed it to me. My company was released from the unauthorized additions. The board assumed direct liability. All new expenses required Judith's written approval. Graham and Evelyn were removed from operational control through final settlement. I sent the pages to my accountant before I let myself breathe. Then I turned the key. The lock gave with a heavy click. I opened both foyer doors and warm light poured across the wet floor. The quartet began late, recovering halfway through the first piece. Staff carried champagne into the vestibule. Guests moved past us with the fascinated politeness of people pretending they had heard less than they had. I handed Judith the service corridor key. The foyer key went to the facilities manager. I kept the loading key on the ribbon, although it no longer opened anything. Evelyn watched each one leave my hand. "You planned this," she said. "I planned a gala. You brought your parents here to shame me. My parents came because they refused to let you choose where they belong." She looked at Graham. "Say something." He did not. For once, silence had chosen her. My team finished the opening sequence. I checked the kitchen timing, corrected 2 place cards, and made sure the lighting crew had Judith's authorization. Then I took off my headset. Darlene stared at it in my palm. "You're leaving?" "My contract doesn't require me to host dinner." "But who handles Evelyn?" I looked across the room. Evelyn stood near the orchids with Martin. Her silver dress caught every light. "Evelyn does." I gave Darlene the headset. Dad had not removed his new bow tie, but he had loosened it enough to ruin the knot. Mum stood beside him, holding the garment bag she had brought in case I wanted to change. "Do you want to stay?" I asked. Dad looked toward the ballroom. "The food smells expensive." Mum frowned at him. "What? It does." I laughed. It came out uneven, but it was real. We left through the loading entrance and ate at a 24-hour diner 2 blocks away. Dad wore his tuxedo. Mum ordered pancakes. I kept the green dress clear of the syrup and failed once. Mum rubbed the spot with soda water while Dad held the fabric away from my knees. "You see?" she said. "The waist is too loose." 3 days later, Graham moved into Evelyn's guest room. He came home for clothes while I was working at the dining table. The lemon dish towels hung from the oven. His coffee mug was still in the sink from the morning of the gala. "The board suspended the promotion process," he said. I heard. "Judith's conducting an expense review." She should. "They've taken me off donor accounts." I closed my laptop. He packed shirts into a suitcase with the neatness he brought to everything when he was angry. My mother resigned as gala chair. Did she resign? The board gave her a choice. He folded another shirt. "She says you've wanted this for years." "What do you say?" He looked at me. "I think you wanted someone to choose you publicly." "No, I wanted my husband to choose me privately when it cost him something." "I did choose you." "When?" "I married you." As if the wedding had settled every future vote. He sat across from me. I was under pressure. Mom had promised the board a number she couldn't meet. I knew the promotion depended on the gala. I thought if I could get everyone through one night, I could fix the rest afterward. "You used me as the afterward." His eyes filled, and I hated that part of me still wanted to cross the table. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." Hope rose in his face. "That doesn't make this safe." He looked down at his hands. "Are you filing for divorce?" "I'm filing for separation first. I need time to make decisions that aren't responses to your emergency." He nodded as if accepting a business condition. Then he covered his face. I went to the kitchen and made coffee because my body still knew how to care for him. I set it beside his suitcase. He drank half before he left. The conservatory paid every approved balance within 10 business days. The review found carelessness, concealed overages, and years of favors treated as budget lines. Graham kept his job long enough to help untangle the accounts, then accepted a development position at a smaller museum in another city. Evelyn sent me a 4-page email apologizing for the chain of misunderstandings that caused reputational harm. I saved it with the financial records and did not answer. Judith asked my company to bid on the next gala. I declined. Luis recommended me for a hotel foundation dinner. The florist brought me 2 corporate clients. My business grew slowly enough that I trusted it. Graham and I met with a mediator. Some days, he understood why I had left. On other days, he said one terrible evening should not erase a marriage. I stopped trying to make him see that the evening had not erased anything. It had developed the picture. At Mum and Dad's anniversary dinner, I wore the green dress again. Mum had taken in the waist and removed the faded handwritten tag. In its place, she had sewn one of her shop labels, Meta Alterations, cream thread with green lettering. When dinner was over, she zipped the dress into its clear garment bag. The old blue ribbon lay in my purse. I had cut it from the useless loading key before returning the key to the conservatory. I tied the ribbon around the garment bag's handle. Its edges were frayed. The color had almost vanished. Still, the knot held. Mum touched it once, then handed the dress back to me.